Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor of the Five Reasons Sports Network. I didn't hold that very long. Thanks for joining on your favorite podcast app. We're on Red Circle, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Also, the Five Reasons YouTube channel. For this particular episode, we recommend that you actually catch it there. Hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. You know, there's always a hurricane coming. Hasn't hit us in a while, but it might. So get those hurricane storm doors, those storm windows. Do it at All Pro Construction Builders. Go to allproconstructionbuilders.com. Reach out to our guy, Danny, huge Miami Heat fan. It's a family business. They are state certified. 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. All Pro Construction Builders.com. Again, Danny and his team will take care of you. If you mention Five Reasons, you will get a 10% discount on top of everything else. So check them out, 305-484-4429. Get your renovations, get your storm doors and windows, get your wigs. If you're listening on the podcast feed, you're not going to understand this. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne.
Yikes. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor here on the Five Reasons Sports Network and the Five Reasons Sports YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. I've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. And I'm not going to introduce the other person because that person is responsible for what I'm wearing on my head right now. If you're watching on YouTube, he's also responsible for this particular topic, which is the reason I'm wearing this on my head, because I'm in my feelings right now. I've delayed this as long as I possibly can. We went through Dame Lillard, Drew Holiday, a variety of other options. But when Eric Spoelstra mentioned Drew Smith as a point guard option today, I caved. Let's do a James Harden episode. And so if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you already know Alex ordered a wig. How much was this on Amazon?
I don't know what you're talking about. I was going to ask you. You look different. I was trying to figure out what it was, but you're right. I mean, is that a wig? It looks natural. It looks good on you.
Well, it is. It takes me a little longer to grow it these days. I am Jewish and 50, so hair does not grow as quickly as it used to.
What's the
my
reason?
daughter
Very
did.
emo.
It is. It's right in my face here too. All right, so here's what we're doing today. Again, I want to feel better about this, so I can actually take this damn wig off because nothing has fucking itched me as much as this has in my entire life. I feel like 100 mosquitoes are biting my head right now. So let's just
Would you
get
say
to
this
it,
is your
okay?
emotional state?
This is my emotional state. This is my emotional state because people understand that it's nothing personal against the human being, but I hate watching James Harden play basketball.
Oh, I thought it was
just hate
because
it.
we had spent a whole week at FAU.
I cannot stand it. I don't like the foul baiting. I don't like this standing around and pounding the ball for 17 seconds, the stat padding with the assists when he's not actually creating anything. And then there's the other stuff that he brings. But Greg, this is where we are. Okay? This is where we are. And although I don't think the point guard situation is that big a deal, and Alex and I were talking on playback that I spoke to Heat players this week who are like, we don't really usually have a traditional point guard in this organization. We have combo guards. Gabe Vincent was a combo guard. It's interesting to me that nobody we've spoken to has said Kyle Lowry is our point guard. Not from the coach, not from anybody else who's been asked about that the entire week. So it does seem like the trend is going the way we expected it to go. And I know I look ridiculous right now, but the trend is going the way we expected it to go, which is that the Heat are planning to bring Kyle Lowry off the bench, most likely, and that Josh Richardson is probably going to start with Tyler Hero, which is what we talked about. Oh, my God. And so I don't think it's that big a deal. The players don't seem to think it's that big a deal, but the fans think it's a big deal. And then Eric Spoelstra, when asked about the point guard situation, talked about Drew Smith's improvement today, and nothing against Drew Smith, but nobody was expecting Drew Smith to have a prominent role in the rotation this year. Should they go get James Harden, Greg? Can I take off this wig?
You should take the wig off for sure. Great start to the show. Alex is upset that I'm suggesting that, but
I'll leave it
I'm
alone.
trying to
No,
keep
I
the
need to
host
be
comfortable
convinced that
here.
this isn't going to happen because
He-
otherwise I'm going to remain in my emotional state. So,
He's
Greg,
in a vulnerable moment here, but
I'm in a
so,
very vulnerable. I cannot watch him pound the basketball for 18 seconds. I'm sorry. They can have my
hey,
credential.
I'm with you to a degree, but he did lead the
Mhm.
league in assists, so he doesn't always pound the ball. We have to at least say that much. But I think we should start with how you could get a deal done so that we could gauge whether we would actually trade the pieces that it would require salary wise to make it even work money wise. So obviously 3-team scenarios, 4-team scenarios can happen and this all can be blown up but let's just functionally get into this quickly. James Harden makes $35.6 million in the last year of a deal he opted into to think he would be traded immediately, still has not. For perspective, to match that salary, if you're just taking James Harden on, really the only way for it to make sense for Miami would be Lowry and probably Caleb Martin to get to that 35.6 million. That's actually a shade over 36.4 million. So I don't think anyone's signing up for. I think the Lowry Harden part, Heat fans could get into, especially for 1 year. You take a chance on a guy with talent. Maybe he really takes it seriously. Mark Jones, who I know we all respect, has reported about Harden's workout regimen and that he really took this summer seriously with that regard, staying in shape. I can talk myself into the disgruntled player that everyone has kind of written off finding his way in Miami. We've heard that story. But I think you'd have to expand the deal. And so what we're talking about then is like, would you do James Harden and PJ Tucker for Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry and draft picks? I'm expanding the deal so that Caleb is not in it. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about trade wise. So you'd have to ask yourself that. I think as a 1 year, take a shot at it. I think they've probably taken bigger risks, honestly, that could maybe be its own episode. I see and I understand where people see the top line talent, the ability to score, the playmaking that he, even if he does it in ways that are not aesthetically pleasing, he gets those things done. But I'll ultimately finish here. I just don't see it happening. I think he's dead set on landing in LA. I think that there's been probably so much back channel conversations with the top players in Los Angeles that the Clippers are going to figure out a way to get a deal done. That's where I land.
I just want to add one more thing here before I go to Alex. One of the reasons for my emotional state here is that James Harden is one of the worst playoff performers of a major star in recent history. I mean, you're talking about a guy who a quarter of the time misses 3/4 of his shots in the playoffs. And we just saw what happened in game 7. So I understand the risk reward here if you're not giving up a lot and that maybe you can rehabilitate some things with him. And again, 1 year deal, you're not committed to him long term. A Hero Harden backcourt concerns me at the point of attack, particularly if you're giving up Caleb Martin. Alex, it's the extra stuff that gets me. If it was Kyle and a pick, right? I'd be okay with it. What do they need PJ Tucker back for? Isn't Haywood Highsmith going to be more productive as PJ Tucker than PJ Tucker would be this season? Seems to me like they're training him to do all the same things. He's younger. PJ just had a bad year. I know people think, okay, back with Spo, not with Doc Rivers, that'll be different. But you can talk me into the Lowry and a pick and you take a flyer. And I know you got to add a little salary to make that thing work. Even if you're not planning on keeping Caleb Martin past this season, I'm not completely convinced James Harden's going to be more productive for you in the variety of ways that you need them. And I know people are going to mock me for this comment. Then Caleb Martin will be if they unleash him as a sixth man and some of the things that we've been watching them, they're kind of get going. Am I crazy to say that? Because obviously James Harden's a Hall of Famer and Caleb Martin is not.
Yeah, I'm not there, and I'm somebody who would prefer, that they keep Caleb and that he's somebody who, like I've said on other shows, and we're gonna get to later on, as the year continues, I think he's gonna be somebody you ultimately want to pay if he keeps playing at the rate he has. But I think you have to throw in Caleb if you're doing it with Kyle alone. Otherwise, you'd have to mix in smaller salaries, aka Jovic and Jaquez, and they're not going to do that. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to hold on to these guys. And so, yeah, the only way that I would even say yes to this is if I know that they're not going to pay Caleb. That's the only way, because, and I'm not saying it's not worth it. Kyle and Caleb for James Harden, you throw in a pick. That's good. That's a good deal value wise. I do think it is. I just would rather do the variation. If we're talking about a Harden deal where you get PJ in return and you get off of Kyle and Duncan, I just think salary wise, like you're exchanging two big salaries for two shorter ones, two shorter deals, because you're getting off of Duncan. Duncan has 3 years left, right? Harden is an expiring who obviously expects to get paid after this year, and then Tucker has 2 years. So you're exchanging the 3 years for 2 years there, and then going from expiring to expiring. I think it's a really nice play. Harden is not obviously the MVP that he used to be, the MVP candidate that he was year after year, but he's a definite all-star still. Like, I think he's still up there when it comes to being an elite shooter off the dribble. The passing is obviously still there, and you look at assist percentage, it hasn't fallen off at all. He's in like the 99th percentile like every year. You kind of look at the offensive advanced stats. He's still kind of at the same place when you look at overall offensive impact. Like, he's an elite offensive player. He's
Every
just
word
not.
Alex speaks, this is itching more, actually, because you're
Not
trying to talk the people into this, which
he's not
I'm
who he was
concerned
before.
about that.
Like, I mean,
He's
he
not.
gets to the rim half the time, right? Like, I mean, half as much as he used to. He's not who he was before. But if you're just telling me like you're trading Kyle Duncan and a pick for for Harden and PJ, I mean, he could be in your rotation. He doesn't have to be a huge part of it. He doesn't have to be how he was before, playing 35 minutes in the playoffs. But what I'm saying is, Harden is your third best player. A guy who can fill it up for you throughout a game, and then you just go to Jimmy to close. Sounds like a good time to me. You have a bunch of defensive players around him. You have Spo at the helm. Like, if there's anybody that could figure it out, it's them. All that being said, I don't see it happening either. It would be a really fun plot twist for us. It would be great for us, and just in general, like it would throw a little bit of a spice onto the season. But no, I don't think it's gonna happen either.
Wouldn't he ask for an extension?
Yeah, he's trying to get paid
Like,
this
wouldn't he
summer.
ask for an
100%.
extension? Like, initially, I mean, if he was with the Clippers, he would ask for an extension, would he not? So you're
Yeah.
saying he's not going to ask for an extension from Miami?
I'm sure he'd want to ask for one, but I bet you Miami would want to wait, because part of the appeal why I can talk myself into this is that if we're going to add Duncan and expand it, you're also like cleaning the cap sheet to a degree, just a little bit, by getting off those Duncan years and getting those two expirings in PJ and James Harden. So I can see advantages to them thinking in that way. Can we negotiate something maybe short term with James Harden that's a little better for them, like, and at the end of the Jimmy era? But again, the Harden Miami long-term marriage, that is where I get a little weird. Take a shot for one season, do some Antoine Walker type stuff where you channel something for a year. Not that, I mean, Harden's a better player than I think Walker was when he arrived in Miami, just to be clear. But anything beyond that, I'm not into. So Ethan, to boil your question down, that's where this gets weird. Are you going to give up a ton? 2 picks is like, I guess, what everyone kind of thinks you'd have to give with Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry to get Harden and PJ in this fake trade that we're making up to try to make you have emotional damage. I don't know. I don't see it being viable.
Well, that's okay. After the break here, that's what I want to get to, is the picks part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that, and then we're gonna speed through the rest of the episode, so I can go wash my real hair here, whatever I have left after this comes off. Do want to mention a couple great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, although they may not want to sponsor again after tonight. Our friends over at PrizePicks, use the code 5 FIVE, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. That is free money at PrizePicks, PrizePicks.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store. Go to PrizePicks, use that code FIVE, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. Also want to mention our friends over at Water Cleanup. If you have a disaster, which is what bringing James Harden to the Miami Heat might be, go to Water Cleanup of Florida. Use no code there. WCUFL.com. Just mention us. WCUFL.com. Michael Robert and his team, they will take care of you. Water damage, mold damage, they can do that for you. They're based in Boca Raton, but they service the entire area. They even go out to the West Coast. And look, these again, state certified, just like our friends over at All Pro. They do a great job. If they can't get the job done, they will tell you. That's one of the great things about Michael and his team there. They're honest people. Go to Water Cleanup of Florida. Also get in their preventative program because we know that insurance companies don't always take care of you. And it's WCUFL.com. All right, you mentioned, if you've got the schmutz.
They got the guts. I thought you were going to
Or-
forget it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things I'm going to try to forget about this episode. Here, let me get to the next part of this, though, because you mentioned picks, right? All right, so what's been the Heat's issue whenever there's been a real star closer to his prime to go get? What has been the issue, Greg?
Lack of draft capital.
Okay. So I understand trying to clean the cap sheet. I understand that there may be a little tension there with Lowry about not starting. To me, Duncan is a positive player for the Heat this year. So
Agreed.
I don't think getting off his contract other than the extra year is a real big deal. But what if you can't hold it forever, but really you're going to burn a good chunk of your draft capital on a guy who he may not show up because how late is Tootsie's open? Well, I shouldn't say. I mean, what is he going to be like in Miami? Like, that's my question. So it's not like there's no risk to this. Even if you don't give him an extension, okay, then if you give up a pick or 2 picks, forget who the Heat might get with those picks because we know they can find players pretty much anywhere. But it's who they can get for those picks, not with those picks, for those picks. So you're going to give up 2 future first round picks. I mean, what if
it better work?
What if Luke is a possibility,
exactly.
right? For this James Harden, are you ready to punt on that stuff for this guy? Maybe some people are because they're frustrated with watching the Heat quote unquote strike out on those players. But this seems like the risk to it.
I'm not there. I'll clearly say that. I think that there are deals, and we could go around the league on a show, and probably people would love it because we'd come up with a bunch of fake trades. I could talk myself. There's a few deals if I canvass the league where I would sacrifice the next 2 picks and say, you know what? If a star becomes available, they still did the right thing. But ultimately, those packages that I'm referencing are not the one for James Harden. He's not that guy.
Alex, since you're the one who's trying to talk everybody into James Harden, if the price is Kyle Lowry and 2 first-round picks, which is apparently what the price was Kyle Lowry and 2 first-round picks for Drew Holiday, and that wasn't enough. I mean, that's what the Heat offered, according to our information.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's different, right? Is the market, because I don't think that market is there at all for Harden like it was for Drew. And even if like there was 17 teams or however many it was rumored for Drew, and not all of them were all the way, the same level of interest, like I do think the market was bigger. I do think teams coveted him more. Whereas like right now, it just seems like, how many teams are actually trying to get in there for Harden outside of the Clippers? Have we heard any of them? Like a single one? And like, look, I'm not a Harden guy. I'm really not. Like, I've been trashing the Sixers on here for years. I mean, he hasn't even been on the Sixers that long, and the guy has had so many bad playoff games. And you can give him credit for always giving the Warriors a fight, especially during those KD years. That one Chris Paul year when he got hurt, all that, he gave him a real fight. Like, and that's hard. That's really hard. The guy was an amazing player in Houston. He's not that guy anymore. But man, if you're telling me you get him at, pretty good value, like this might be worth doing, man.
Like just one draft pick. Like one draft pick. Now we start getting
one draft pick and no Caleb Martin, and you can talk me into it. But I don't know how you get there, and I don't know how Daryl Morey is going to make a deal that's favorable to the Heat. I mean, we're kind of getting
first and a second, a first and a swap, so maybe something like that.
Well, we've lost the forest for the trees here. Like Joe Cronin had a personal issue with the Heat because Dame picked them, but like Daryl Morey has a competitive issue with the Heat. They're in the same damn conference. They're basically the 3rd and 4th, or you throw the Knicks and Cleveland in there. Like they're in that 3 to 6 mix in the Eastern Conference.
They're going to want
Caleb. He's going to make a deal that's favorable to Miami to just get off of this guy. Like, I don't know. I mean, it seems unlikely to me. I just, again, I understand that things have run their course with Kyle Lowry to a large degree. And I understand that Harden can provide more upside. I'm not going to argue with that.
Big upgrade.
Once we start talking about 2 picks, And then, or you start talking about a pick and Caleb, who is going to be really critical to what they do this season, regardless
Ethan,
of what
what about the
happens after
Duncan
this.
one? Duncan and PJ, that variation.
I mean, but again, but then if you, how many picks? Like, how many picks are you doing? Are you sending?
What's the
One
most
pick,
you would
just
do?
your
the
most
money?
recent pick that'll convey.
What's the most you would
Okay,
do?
I
Like
mean,
just
if
one, you wouldn't go over for like a
no,
second or a
if
swap, maybe.
I hate to say this, if it was Duncan, Kyle, and a protected first
For
to
PJ
take the
and
flyer
Harden.
on Harden, I don't.
Throw it
I
a
and
second.
PJ, I don't expect really anything from PJ, and I think honestly he'll be a progress stopper for some of the other guys that they have.
Oh,
I do because I think that I think Haywood's ready to do the PJ things right now,
You're right.
and
yeah, I
I'd
don't think they
rather
need
see what you
PJ.
have in there. What's that?
No, I don't think they need PJ. It's just like at that point you're getting back
It's-
somebody who you know would fit, and like Leif said, it helps financially and all that, and I'd rather do that variation is what I'm saying. But yeah, we all know it's not gonna
Look,
happen.
for the podcast numbers, yes, okay, because it'll be a circus, and you'll have the best playoff performer of his generation and the worst on the same team, and that's going to be incredible to watch. I think to see. Because here's the thing: we can say that James doesn't care about winning anymore, and then the report scoring anymore, and having the ball in his hands, and then the reports came out from that Ime Udoka basically after he went to Houston as the head coach that they pulled the max offer. I don't whose report that was. That I'm not sure, but there was a report that they pulled the max offer because Harden wanted to win a scoring title. Like, is that really where this organization wants to take this thing this year?
I mean,
Are-
don't they kind of need somebody like that? Don't they need some instant offense to get them through the regular
All right,
season?
you know what? I can't take you anymore. You made me wear this thing, and you're still pushing in this direction. So I want to take this wig off. Okay, I really do, and I want to go. I'm gonna wash what's left of my hair. Okay, however much gray is in there. More after this particular.
We got to bring it
episode.
back for a playback for a live audience at some point.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Actually, we're not. My daughter's already. Although my daughter helped me put it on, so I give her credit for that. I will say this. Okay. Oh, she has bangs also. Make me feel better about this. Alex, not you first. Greg, you first. Is it going to happen or not?
I don't think it'll happen. I think that the only way it would happen would be the Harden Duncan scenario where they give up the least amount of draft capital. They're not giving up Caleb Martin. That's crazy. It makes them like arguably worse with what they're going to need and call for from Caleb today.
I agree with that.
Or what Spo even talked about, excuse me. So I'm not there. I wouldn't freak out if I were you. The other deal, though, with Duncan involved, if they feel that they've replenished the shooters and there's another Duncan or Max amongst those guys at training camp right now, that gets interesting to me because of all the things we've already talked about.
So you're telling me that Cole Swider is all that stands between me and having to watch James Harden lollygag and
Drew
foul
Peterson
bait
might be
through
standing there
82
too.
games.
At least you got
And
a
then-
couple
and then-
guys standing in front of it.
And then tease us until they get to a game 7 and he shoots 3 for 18 from the floor with 8 turnovers. That's what you're telling? It's Cole
playoffs
Swider
tell.
or Drew Peterson.
If we
is what
remember that
stands
the
in between that.
playoffs tell, then this probably is not going to be a story told in Miami.
Well, I mean, what about this?
Alex, I'm not letting you speak. I'm taking off the wig. I don't really care what you have to say.
You just use him as a decoy in the playoffs, and you don't let him touch the ball when it matters most. You just use
we're off the rails.
All right, it's been a nice episode. Thanks to our sponsors, Water Cleanup of Florida, Better Edge. No, Better Edge didn't sponsor us. I don't care. 5RSN. You can use the code Prize Picks. Use the code 5. All Pro Construction Builders. It's not happening. The wig's going in the garbage. Have a good night, everybody. No, done.